Go in for a pitch. Now, this is the pitch prep. Now, this means they've had you for a meeting, they're interested in you, they've given you an idea, and they're having you come in with a take to see if you're the writer they're going to pick to hire to develop this idea. Okay? You got to get the source material. If it's based on a previously existing IP, find out what it is, read it, they should send it to you. You can get them to send it to you. Make sure that they own the rights to that material. It does you no good to do a ton of work on coming up with a take for something if they don't have the rights. I was up for a Stan Lee writing job, adapting a Stan Lee comic book with a big producer at Warner Brothers, and I pitched all the way up the ladder. They loved me. I got picked for the job, and then told me start working on it. We're just finishing up our contract with Stan, and then 2 months later, their whole deal with Stan Lee fell apart, and I did all that work, all that pitching, going through all that levels, developing a huge story outline and everything, and started writing the script for nothing because I never got paid because I never actually had the rights to the material to begin with.
How would you find that out? How would you do that?
Ask them, do you have the rights to this yet?
Okay.
Because it sounds really great, but you have to ask yourself. Sometimes, okay, you will sometimes do it for working with a company that is worth being in business with and going out on a limb for, just to establish yourself as a writer. Mm-hmm. But if you're already working and you already have a project, say, with Mike Newell and Dustin Hoffman attached, you don't necessarily have to be doing work on projects that aren't ever going to happen because they don't even have the rights to them.
Mm-hmm. It's a time issue.
Mm-hmm. It is. Ask questions. Don't be afraid to ask questions to clarify what it is they're looking for. Just because you have the source material doesn't mean they even like the source material. Sometimes the development executive is in charge of getting somebody to write this because it's a movie the studio wants, but they actually don't want to do what the comic book did. They want to do something different. So make sure you ask them, what do you love most about this thing? So I make sure I'm paying service to what the movie is you want to make. And then is there anything about this that you hate that you want to avoid? Ask the questions. Get a time frame in which they expect you to come back with a take. Because some people say, look, we need takes on this by the end of next week because we're moving forward now. And others will say, take your time with it, man. We're just in the processes of getting the rights and everything. Find out if you can ask about the budget range. You can just listen. Then break the mold when you do it. When you prep the pitch, by breaking the mold, it means do something with the material that the material didn't realize it could be. Do something bold, do something do something that somebody who read whatever script they read last of yours, they understand that you brought that writer who they like to this material and made it better for it. Because you're answering the biggest question that they're always going to be asking the whole time you pitch, which is why are they going to hire you? If you don't do something different from what's in the book, they have no reason to pick you over anybody else. I always plot out the 22 beats of a story, and then I prep the 10 most visual escalating beats of the story. So when I pitch 10 beats, no more. And you just string it together with a storyline. The biggest, most affecting, most visual spectacle pieces of the story. Make sure your protagonist has to work really hard for what they get. And it's a love it or leave it thing. It's either they're going to love it or they're not. They're going to ask you a ton of questions. That doesn't mean they're not interested. Sometimes they ask you a ton of questions because they want to make sure, and sometimes they don't ask any questions because they're equally emphatic about it, but they don't see a problem with it. And other times they're asking questions because they think there are holes to be punched, and it doesn't sound like it's all figured out. And sometimes they ask questions, and sometimes they don't ask questions simply because it's not worth it, because they already know they don't want your take. So how engaged they are afterwards has no relevance whatsoever on their opinion of what you did.
What constitutes a take?
A take is having a pitch that shows that you understand the whole structure of how the story should be told cinematically. And that's, I pick the biggest 10 beats of the story. That's a take. Yes?
Could you give like a 1-minute intro of how you would pitch something?
Well, in 1 minute, no,
No.
because a pitch is 10 minutes.
But I mean, just even how a person would start out, I guess is what I'm asking.
The legend of Casanova is that he could seduce 4 women every single night. What you didn't know is that there's actually 4 Casanovas. And they work together building up this enormous reputation by sleeping with everything throughout Italy and now down the French countryside. Because when you're doing a movie about the romance of Casanova, of course you're going to set it in the south of France. But these guys are so deep in debt, they're so deep in debt that they're going to go to debtor's prison if they don't take this bet, a wager brought to them by the King of England, to seduce the princesses and the Queen of France into their hearts and into their beds in 3 days. The ultimate test for Casanova. The problem is if they win, they find their freedom. And if they lose, the women that will change their lives and teach them what love really is will be ruined forever.
Did you just come up with that?
That's the first script I ever wrote.
That's amazing.
It's called The Casanovas. That was what Mike Newell was attached to do, and Dustin Hoffman played the character who brought the wager from the king to the Casanovas to do it. And of course, the Casanovas were cast as tall, dark, and handsome. So I wanted one of them to be African American, I wanted one of them to be really tall, and the other one is a pair of twins who are super cute. You know? And then you go into, and then I would hit the major plot beats. And I would go into, so the inciting incident is they get this dare from the King of England. And then at turning point 1, they go to the castle at the, what's the famous French castle with the Hall of Mirrors?
Versailles.
Palace. They go to the Palace of Versailles, get crashed into the ball with their escort, who's from the King of England, because he's all in with the French court. And in doing so, the guy is so intimidated by the power of the Queen, he can't get it up. There goes Casanova's biggest weapon. The one who always uses the words of Shakespeare to seduce a woman. She is such a poetry major that she knows every line ever written by Shakespeare, so he can't seduce her with these words he's always used. And then the other one is a spoiled brat, and the guy who's a spoiled brat is spoiled, but he's not more spoiled than her, so he can't get her into bed. It's the klutz one who's getting the girl instead of he is, and he can't stand that his little klutzy brother is actually getting her attention more than he is, because he's always the one winning women for him, because he's a putz. But now his sincerity pays off because she finally has someone that's genuine. And what happens is during the course of this movie, these 4 men who have been selfish their entire lives realize the 4 different kinds of love. True love of a soulmate who has the same dreams and goals you do. The love of a woman as a friend, not having anything to do with sex. Your first love, that first puppy love that teaches you what it means to care about somebody else. And then the love of your brother. Learning that you can't take what you want if you love your own family and deny them what they deserve too.
Dang, you're good.
So what happened to that script?
I own it again. They optioned it. They all signed on to it. I have a horror story I could tell you about it, but I'm not going to do that now because it would take too long. But that was the story, and that was my first script that ever got set up.
How
And
many
I wrote
times
that
have
in
you given
college.
that pitch? Ballpark. How many times have you pitched that?
I probably haven't pitched that in 20 years.
But over the course of your
I don't pitch it that much because I already set it up and it's kind of old hat. But you should practice it yourself over and over again until you know it. I know the story so well because I've rewritten it 45 times. I mean, just for me, I'm always making it better. Like I said earlier, they actually pay you. When they pay you to stop writing. They're just ready to take it off your hands. So in the pitch meeting, you'll have a casual sit down at first. You'll get your drink, your Diet Coke or whatever. You'll sit down with them. You sit with relaxed posture, and you'll sit up when it's time to actually pitch. When it's time to pitch, you're going to go from relaxed to moving to the edge of your seat, leaning forward. This means you're ready to tell them a story, right? Let the body language show. Because when you do this, you already they're going to automatically, whether they do it physically or not, inside, they do this. So you're preparing them. And when you do that, you're physically cueing them that, oh, this is interesting. Because the way you do that, we're chemically responded. We're chemically inclined to know when somebody leans in, ooh, this is going to be juicy. Point out the flaws with the source material. This is crucial as long as the writer isn't in the room. Because the way one of my methods for always getting the job is making it clear where the pitfalls are in the material that they need to look out for. I said, look, you may not hire me for this, and that's fine, but at the end of the day, if the other writers are not changing this, you're basically letting them know, your other writers who come in for this job, they're gonna fuck up, because they're not gonna see this problem with the source material, and they're not gonna see this. And these are dead ends that you need to work on to make sure that this story works, and these are my solutions for them. When you show them where the problems are, and then the next guy comes in and he leans into that part of the story and uses it in his pitch, you immediately got him exiled from the job and you're one step closer to getting it. It's a horrible way to look at it, but the truth is that they need to know that anyway, and you're doing your job as a good storyteller, making sure the good story gets told. And the truth is you're also getting rid of competition for that job, because you're seeing things that other people are not seeing. Which is, again, answering the question, why you? That's what everything needs to be. You're answering the question, why you? Obviously, you have to have a log line.
What does lay the trap mean?
That's laying the trap.
Okay.
Laying the trap is letting them know all the things that other writers are going to do that are going to screw up the material because it's in the original material, and they're not seeing how to fix it.
Where do you work that in? To your pitch session?
Yeah.
Do you lead with, here's where they screwed up, or work it in as you're telling the story, or at the end? Because it's a negative.
I start with how great it is and how much I love it and how excited I am to do it, otherwise I wouldn't be there pitching it. I don't go in for meetings on scripts and things I don't think I can freaking nail. And then when I'm in there, I go, this is when we get to a part of the story where I think we can really take this story idea to the next level and make it even better as a film. And say, look, in this story it does this. I think this is a pitfall and a trap, because in the script, in the story, she's really just a trophy and all this stuff. Let's do this with it. Let's do that with it. You need to do this. If somebody comes in here and doesn't fix the role of this character in this movie, they don't have a take you can use. Because the character is integral to the end, but the character has no meat on their bones. And don't take an anorexic version of this character into script. Track the 3-act story structure throughout the pitch. Because all of a sudden, you're pitching for 10 minutes and they think you're getting to the end of the story and you go, and that's Act 1. Then they're like, ugh. Right? So let them know where you are in the script as you go along. So at the beginning of Act 1, we're setting up the flaw here, and this is what happens that changes the world. As you guys know, the aliens come to Earth, and then, at the end of Act 1, the character decides he's going to become an alien. That's what he's going to do. And then you talk about how that happened and why it's so cinematic. I talked about the 10-point beat sheet. What I do a cheat sheet so that they can't, they're going to ask you to leave your pitch behind, which they're not supposed to. So what I do when I bring in the pitch, I have my 10 beats and I have one word and I have them numbered for each one of the 10 beats I'm going to pitch. This is laser tunnels. I know what that means. And so I know what that beats. So that if they ask questions and interrupt me in the middle, I can look back at my cheat sheet and try to remember which one of these beats I was on so I don't get lost and thrown off. But it's also not something I can leave behind and give them as a writing sample so that they can steal my work and give it to the writer they actually hire, who's bigger or more famous than me.
Can you talk about logline?
Oh, I can, but that really is a thing into itself. A log line is less than 50. Again, there is a whole chapter dedicated to log lines in my book. And it tells you all the do's and don'ts of log lines, and we can really get into that. But basically, no longer than 2 sentences, no longer than 55 words. You have to have a protagonist who is trying to accomplish a physical goal. You have an antagonist, and these are the stakes. And, as an adjective before the protagonist, you can use an adjective that draws attention to the character flaw, but you do not make the log line about the inner journey. The log line, like the film itself, is going to be about the outer journey that they're going to sell to audiences in a preview, in a trailer. So you don't say in a log line, for example, what genre it is, but the verbs you use in a log line should very clearly delineate the kind and the subject matter of the log line should tell the reader or the audience, the person you're pitching, exactly what genre it is without saying. If I'm talking about high octane, you know it's an action film. If I'm talking about guts and violence and horror, you're going to know it's horror even if you don't say horror. You talk about torturing and stuff like that, you know what the genre is, and those are the things you layer in. Your pitch should be no longer than 15 minutes. 10 is a good amount, and make it your baby too. Infuse a lot of you into it. You have to. If you don't bring a bunch of things to that pitch that are not from the source material, you're not telling them why you. You need to take what they gave you and look at all the beats that they had in the comic, and then show them how you can make each of those beats better, more cinematic, more stylized, more badass and cool. Because that's why they're going to pick you. Remember, it's moving images, it's passion. You're not selling them. It's passion. Do not repeat yourself, stay in the moment. They will interrupt you to poke holes. That's their job. They need to make sure that you've thought through everything. My throat is getting raw.
We're almost done.
Yeah, I know.
It's a good one.
They will get terminology wrong. So clarify, if they ask you questions and they're saying things, they don't understand what a pinch is. They're not going to know what you mean by escalation 2 or 3 or whatever. So just use common terms. And they're saying, so at this point in the story, just related to act, so just get clarification. If they say something, find out if you're sure you understand what they mean. Always get clarification. That's not bad. Just don't make it sound like you're questioning them, but make sure you understand their notes. Stay cool, stay flexible. Sometimes you'll get a job just because they throw something at you, they've planned to throw at you, and you just on the spot can come up with something genius. I did that once for this job, and he's like, well, we should do something like this. I'm like, yeah, we could do that, and I could do it like this, and we could do this, and then I do this with it, and it would really play into that. And they freaking loved what I came up with. And then, of course, when I wrote the script, that was the first thing they cut. But they want to know that if they have an idea, you can flesh it out, give it an idea, and roll with them, and you are not going to just poo-poo everything they say. They may realize it's not a good idea later. Just say, yeah, I can roll with that, and then give them an example. So just be brilliant on your feet. No problem. They may test you, so do not blindly say yes. They pay us because we know better than them how to tell a story. Don't forget. So if they say something, they'll just go, yeah, absolutely. Then it's like, get clarity and make sure you understand what they're saying, and then say, well, doesn't that create a problem because of this? Because chances are, if you confront them with things and you're able to catch them in the room and get things right, they're not embarrassed. If you're alone with them, they're not embarrassed by you realizing that perhaps wouldn't work. Here's what I would, usually I never say no in a room, but I ask questions. And those questions lead them to say, you know what, never mind. Or if not, I get them to make clarity on it, and I go, let me think about that. And then I go away, and sometimes by the next time I come back, they forgot about it anyway. I didn't need to change a damn thing. And other times, but what I will do is come up with something different, give them another option, and say, hey, your idea inspired me to make this change. Because I realized what you were really saying is this, and I think what we can do there is this. Because they pay you to improve every idea that gets flung at us, from the original IP and from them. Otherwise, they have no reason to hire you to do it. They just do it. So I never say no as a knee-jerk reaction. Ask questions and take yes for an answer. When they say, that's great, don't try to talk more about it.
Yeah.
Take yes for an answer. The minute you think you have it, if they've got nothing else, say, dudes, I freaking love this project. I hope I get the chance to work with you. You rock. I'm out of here. Get the hell out before you talk yourself out of a job. You're done. Yes.
To this, if you are in a room with multiple people, what is your role if one totally agrees with you and then the other totally disagrees?
Who's higher on the food chain?
That happens. And half the time they'll give you notes. One person will give you notes that are a combination of 5 people's notes who are not even in the room, and the notes will contradict themselves. And you can't give them both. So first of all, understand the rankings of the people in the room. Who's the boss? Second, when they're conflicting and they don't agree with the same thing, and you know that you can't do that and that, say, hey guys, okay, so you have this idea, you have this idea, but they don't coexist for this reason. So we have to make a tough call here and talk about what is it about each of these ideas that we're trying to get so that we can come up with a reasonable solution that everybody's happy with. Basically, our job is a creative mediator until the director comes on board and takes over the vision. And then the aftermath is be ready to go again. Take their notes, take what they said, consider it, don't change anything. If they bring you back, that means you got it. That means you're in the running, and don't mess with it too much. Protect your leave behinds. If you're not supposed to give any, as a WGA writer, you're not supposed to give them written material without being paid for it. That's a rule. And that's not their fault. And they will say to you, I love what you're doing. I know you're our guy, but I'm never going to be able to pitch this up the ladder as well as you're going to be able to write it. So do you want to give me some pages so that I don't mess up your idea and blow it for you? That's going to be their argument. You'll say, and your answer is, then call me into the room. I'll pitch it for you. I got this, man. I'm here for you.
That's all we got here.
That's right. Exactly. Yes.
What if they insist?
And then you have a choice to make. Who do you want to be? Who are you? And protect your stuff. First thing you do is you protect your draft and you send it into the Writers Guild or whatever you have to do to protect your draft of it and your notes. And then you have to decide if you really want to do it. It depends really on where you're going to get bullied. As a new writer, they're going to try to take advantage of you and the fact of how desperate we are to get a break in the business. That is how they are. It is cutthroat, and then half the time they'll take your ideas, can't get anything done anyways, and then sometimes they even give it to the next writer. I once was given somebody else's outline on a project when they said, here, let's work off of this. And I go, oh, did you write this? I go, no, who wrote it? Oh, some guy, don't worry, he's not on the project anymore. And the question is was he ever paid for it? No. This was some person who brought them a take, and I decided, you know what, if this is somebody else's idea, we should talk to them. Because, it happens, and nobody's going to do it like you. But or you could just say, look at the other things you're working on. I'm not a big fan of, and I understand their reasoning, but just tell them, I can come in and pitch it for you. What's the problem? I'm free all next week. You give me a day and a time, I'm here. Let me come into the office. He goes, well, that's not the way we do things here. I go, what, you don't bring in writers to pitch your stories to the bosses? That's exactly how it should be done. How does he expect you to do that? That's not your job. Your job is to bring the talent to them. I'm the talent. Bring me, baby. I have arrived. You can sell it. You just have to be positive, engaging, and not. You don't have to be bullied, even though everybody thinks they can bully you. Creatives are taken advantage of all the time because they let themselves be. Remember to always write what you love. And there you go. Twitter again.
Yeah. Yay. Good.
Yay.